Alrighty, so the story for today, this is not a news story by any means. Let me see if I can find the date on this. This was initially published in May of 2021. I just haven't had a chance to weigh in on it yet, so here we are today. The story that I'm going to bring to you is going to be from Channel 10 in Columbus. The headline reads, "The City of Columbus sets new social media policy for police and firefighters." I'm going to actually go ahead and play the video that's embedded in this story. It's only 2 minutes and 46 seconds. The reporter in it is the one I mentioned the other day, Lacey Crisp. She's got the local crime beat for Channel 10. She does a pretty good job of covering things in what I believe is a fair manner. So I'm going to let her reporting do most of the talking on this story. And then maybe I'll give you my opinion at the end. I think it's funny. There's social media policies that every company has. Being a public employee is no different, but this one is slightly different. It goes a little bit further than most policies that I'm aware of. And well, let's just play the story, and then I'll be back in a moment.
A rift, that is how Carter Stewart and OSU describes the relationship between Columbus city leaders and the police department. Now the city has a new social media policy just for police and fire that some argue tries to stop those first responders from saying anything negative online about city leaders. 10 TV's Lacey Crisp explains.
Nowadays, it's hard to find people who aren't on social media. Most companies have social media policies. The city of Columbus has a new social media policy for police officers and firefighters. It states that they can be fired for posting anything that can be perceived as negative about the city.
Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You probably have one or more accounts on the social media platforms. Most businesses have social media policies. Columbus Public Safety just put out a new social media policy after an investigation was launched into a Columbus Police Deputy Chief's use of Twitter.
It's clear to me, while the city of Columbus can regulate social media of employees, they've gone way too far with this policy, and in many instances, it violates the First Amendment.
The policy states, even on pages viewed as personal, that employees should not express feelings and opinions that may be perceived as negative about the city or its operations, because those statements could be mistaken for official expressions of city policy or position.
This particular policy goes so far to say that city employees who criticize public officials could be disciplined, and the First Amendment protects that sort of criticism.
10 TV asked City Attorney Zach Klein for an interview about the new policy. He declined, but sent a statement saying it is vital that statements made by these employees do not jeopardize the public's understanding that they can do their job free of any bias. We are confident this new policy will provide the necessary guidance for those employees.
I think it's right. It sets the right expectations and standards for folks that are first responders in the community.
City leaders like Columbus Mayor Andrew Ginther often take to social media to get their message across, but are not limited to the new social media policy for police officers and firefighters.
Should you not adhere to the same policies that police and fire are subjected to?
You know, the director has set forth clear standards and expectations for police and fire, and as an independently elected official who serves 900,000 people in the city of Columbus, I'm going to weigh in the appropriate way on issues that matter to the people.
And Weaver warns if the policy isn't tweaked, it could end up costing taxpayers thousands in lawsuits. In Columbus, Lacey Crisp, 10 TV News.
Alrighty, so let me make sure this doesn't start playing again. A little bit of background that the story didn't necessarily touch on is that this policy was written because there was a deputy chief who had a Twitter account, and he posted a lot of things voicing his disagreement and displeasure with things that city council and the mayor were doing. This prompted the city, through either the mayor's office or through city council, to hire a law firm specifically to investigate this deputy chief's First Amendment activity to decide whether or not it violated the First Amendment. I'm pretty sure that the findings were that he did not, or did I say violated the First Amendment? I think I meant to say they had a whole investigation to see if he was violating any policies or directives. And I'm pretty sure that the findings were in favor of the deputy chief, that his statements and everything were covered under the First Amendment. Social media policies are very common, and there's a good reason for them. Things that would violate the social media policy, as far as I understand it, would be divulging information about active investigations, divulging the identity of undercover operatives for the division, a lot of things like that. I think it would also be, I don't know if it's necessarily a violation or would be something that would be unwise and would put yourself in jeopardy, is if you were to go out and say, hey, there's a certain law that was written, I'm not going to enforce that law. I don't think you can do that as a police officer, because you don't write the laws, you just enforce the laws. Our officials are elected, and it's your job to enforce the laws that are on the books. There's a lot of discretion in policing, and you can use discretion when you're going about your duties. It's just that you're not going to make a blanket statement saying that, oh yeah, I have discretion in this law, I don't like that, so I'm not going to enforce that law. One thing I find interesting about this policy is that a lot of these leaders are often talking about accountability and transparency. I think the best way to be transparent and to be held accountable as a public official is that if your employees disagree with something that you have to say, that they be allowed to voice their opinion. I also think it's interesting that these public officials, people like the mayor, he can come out and make statements about the police department saying that it has a long history of systemic racism, and he can make all these comparisons to police officers on our department, to bad things that happen all over the country. And then he goes ahead and sends down an edict saying that the officers that serve under him are unable to say anything in their own defense. Something else about being in a position of leadership: if you're a good leader, you don't have to worry about what the people who work under you are going to say about you. If you're a good leader, you're competent, and you're good at your job, everyone beneath you is going to have good things to say about you. Of course, there's always going to be, those 5%ers that you can't make them happy no matter what, or there's going to be people who are crazy. That's just part of our world. No matter what part of the world you're in, there's going to be people who don't like you. You have to get over that. As a leader, you just have to accept that. The nice thing about being a good leader is that 5%, they're going to get drowned out by the 95% of the people who support you. So if you're a good leader, you don't have to make rules saying that your employees are not allowed to say anything bad about you. Another interesting thing about this policy is that it's very loosely defined. It's really difficult to say the definition of whatever they're saying, that you're not allowed to say anything derogatory about city leaders or policymakers or whatever. It's very loosely defined on a legal, as far as legal definitions go. So it would be incredibly difficult to enforce this kind of policy. I don't know if it's necessarily been tested yet, but if it is tested, I'm really interested in seeing the outcome. Because personally, I don't think this is something that's constitutional. I don't think your insecurity as a leader gives you the ability to strip your employees of their First Amendment rights. I'm curious what you all think about that. So with that being said, those are my thoughts for today. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.